With the London Blitz, the war entered a new dark phase. London was bombed for 57 consecutive nights.
Upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization.
It seemed increasingly likely that Oxford itself would be bombed.
The might of the enemy must very soon be turned on us.
Thank you, Coach.
Air raid drills became a constant interruption to the penicillin work. Laboratory equipment had to be swapped for picks and shovels to dig air raid shelters. The highly flammable chemicals used in the extraction of penicillin had to be removed from the lab and buried away from the building.
This was when the war was in a rather unhappy phase, and the professor, a cynic, a constructive and a good cynic, said, well, we may see the panzers rolling down Eddington Hill yet, so there's no harm in just rubbing this in a few pockets or in the linings of a suit or two, just in case if the worst happens and somebody gets away, they'll be able to recover the fungus.
Florey had reason to fear the mould falling into enemy hands. He had heard of requests for samples of penicillium through neutral Switzerland, possibly from German sources.
Jerry will never know.
Ernst Chain still had family living under the Nazi regime. He had left Germany in 1933, believing his mother and sister were in no danger and that the regime would only last 6 months. But things were very different now. It was becoming increasingly difficult for him to get news of their fate.
Right, left, right. Get the shoulders back there.
Left, right, left, right.
Howard Florey and his wife Ethel faced an agonizing decision about their children's safety. Around them, many Oxford families were making plans to evacuate their children to Canada and America. Howard and Ethel had been sweethearts since their early 20s in Australia. They met as medical students at Adelaide University. Ethel was a year behind him and the only woman in her year. But when she joined him in Britain, the marriage began to have difficulties. Ethel was going deaf, and Howard apparently found that his jokes didn't improve on the second telling. But they were devoted to their 2 children, and divorce was not considered an option. They battled on, communicating by notes left on the kitchen table.
My dear girl, I make a few suggestions. One, perhaps other ways will occur to you of being patient with my peculiarity. If we are to make a real effort at reconciliation, I think it is quite clear that we must live together. We will be successful. Now that we know some, at least, of the reasons for one another's discontents, it may be easier for us to be forgiving.
In late 1940, with the war news grim, the Floreys made the difficult decision to evacuate their children to America. Charles, aged 5, and Paquita, aged 10, left England from Liverpool docks in December 1940. In the party leaving, there were 127 children of Oxford academics. 27 mothers accompanied them. Charles and Paquita would spend the war with Howard's friends John and Lucia Fulton in New Haven, Connecticut. Ethel was devastated at the separation, but there was some compensation. It allowed her to resume her medical career. The war brought a mounting sense of urgency to the penicillin work. The human trials Florey wanted still seemed out of reach. Until then, he had allowed each member of the team to work at their own pace in their own area of expertise.
Work has been done down here, but the cooling has boosted the yield. But at this end,
yield is impurities.
Now he wanted to force the pace.
With the impurities,
He would just say there's no problem there, and I'm very pleased with the work here that we've got more of this.
Excellent.
When Heatley suggested a way to solve a major chemical problem, Chain considered it an invasion of his territory.
The impurities in the ether will remain in the ether. But the penicillin...
What followed has been the subject of differing recollections from the three men.
I must state categorically, I never said Heatley's experiment would not work. I've never been able to understand on what basis or at what time this story was invented. All I said was that it may be a good idea, but it was chemical work, and we had agreed that the chemical work would be done by myself.
You need to set up an experiment.
Florey backed Heatley.
I have it all in my laboratory.
Well, Jane realized the argument was lost. And with a shrug told me, well, if you think it will work, why don't you do it yourself? That will surely be the best and quickest way to show you were wrong.
It seemed to me it didn't matter whose idea it was. If it worked out, our output would double, and in many cases, everything would be published under all our names.
The pressure was now on Heatley to make his idea work. Wartime shortages meant that the equipment he needed was not available. They had neither the money nor priority. He would have to prove his idea with what he could scrounge. His idea had two parts. The first was to back-extract the penicillin concentrate into water. The second was to create a machine which would automate the process. If the machine worked, it would increase production 20-fold. Florey had recruited Heatley because of his great technical skills. But no one had ever thought he would have to design and build a revolutionary chemical extraction plant with the equipment store closed for war. Later, pharmaceutical companies would spend millions of pounds replicating what Heatley did, using an old light globe as a float and parts of an old telephone as an alarm system. On the 24th of August 1940, the influential British medical journal, The Lancet, published the Oxford team's paper on the first mouse experiment. It announced their belief in the power of penicillin, and it staked their claim to the credit for its discovery. Today, it is regarded as one of the most important articles ever to appear in The Lancet. In 1940, Britain had other things on its mind, but there was interest in their paper from an unexpected quarter. A week after the publication, Alexander Fleming re-entered the penicillin story. Fleming asked, "What's happening with my old penicillin?" His sudden appearance caught the Dunn school workers by surprise. Chain later confessed to Florey that he thought Fleming was dead.
Molded broth that would be removed. You understand, of course, the heat will destroy the penicillin. So they were working with the cold methods, yes? Which of course...
They gave him a small sample of penicillin as a powder, something he had never seen.
Fantastic.
Fleming went back to London, leaving no comment or word of praise for the Oxford work that would soon lift him to fame around the world. In retrospect, the Oxford men should have been more cautious.